In the year 991, Poland shared a border with the Roman Empire. The map of Poland in 991 and 2026 shows the border with Germany is the same as it was in 991. We had more land than Ukraine and Belarus. Let's dive into history. Today, April 12, 2026, let's go on an amazing trip through time. It's a trip that doesn't need a time machine, just two maps. One map is Poland today, with its familiar shape in the middle of Europe. The other map is much older, put together from a mysterious paper, Dagome iudex. This document is from around the year 991, and it's one of the first maps that describes Poland. It was a gift, giving the young nation to the Pope in Rome for protection. Let's start with the heart of these lands. Right in the heart of Schinesghe state, just like in the heart of modern Poland's historical story, lay Greater Poland. This area, along with the nearby Kuyavia region, was clearly the core of the early PS state. The document called Dagome iudex, even though it's not very exact in many ways, indirectly points to this land as the center of power. The document describes a state that starts in this very region and spreads outwards. This was the homeland of the Polani tribe, the people who gave their name to the whole nation. This is where the most important events in Poland's history as a state happened, long before the Dagome iudex was written down in Rome. Key centers of power: Gniezno, Poznan, Kruszwica. The Dagome iudex has a wonderfully descriptive phrase that talks about the northern edge of Mieszko's land. It says, "Usque in locum, qui dicitur longum mare." This poetic description almost certainly refers to the Baltic Sea, and specifically to the coast of Pomerania, around the mouth of the Vistula River, near the settlement that became the great city of Gdańsk. This single line in a 1,000-year-old document is incredibly important. It confirms that from the very beginning, the Polish state wasn't just a landlocked country. Mieszko understood how strategically and economically valuable it was to have access to the sea. Controlling this part of the coast, known as Gdańsk Pomerania, was a game-changer. It opened up direct routes for sea trade, connecting Mieszko's state to the busy trade routes of the Baltic region. Plus, controlling the mouth of the Vistula meant controlling a major lifeline for the entire country. The mention of the long sea shows a clear similarity between Mieszko's strategic thinking and today's geography. Today, access to the Baltic Sea is still a cornerstone of the country's economy and security. Looking south, the Dagome iudex map gives us two more important spots: Krakow and Alemure. Krakow being part of it is a really big deal. This city, which would later become Poland's capital, was already under Mieszko's control by 991. It was located on the upper Vistula River, a gateway to the south, with trade routes leading to Bohemia, Moravia, and Hungary. This shows that Mieszko's state went beyond its northern heartland. Alemure is a puzzle for historians. The general agreement is that Alemure is Olomouc in Moravia. If that's true, Mieszko's influence reached even further than the Sudetes and the Carpathians. This early state included lands that are now in a different country. That's a key difference between the maps. When we look at the western edge of Mieszko's state, the Dagome iudex once again gives us a clear and strong landmark: the Odra River. The document says the border goes north along the Odra, Longo Flumine Odra, which means along the long Odra River. This shows that for most of its length, this big river was the dividing line between the new Polish state and the German lands of the Holy Roman Empire to the west. This is really similar to how things are today, with the Odra and the Lusatian-Neisse rivers. This border on the Odra has been a part of Poland's geography, in some way or another, for over 1,000 years. To its west lay the mighty and expanding Holy Roman Empire, whose Saxon lords were always pushing eastward. The Odra provided a natural barrier, a line that Mieszko worked hard to fortify and defend. The famous Battle of Cydynia in 972, where Mieszko's forces defeated the Saxon Margrave Odo Fürst, was fought to make sure they controlled the left bank of the lower Odra. Even though there are big similarities in the middle of the country and along the main rivers, if you compare Mieszko's Poland with today's Poland, you'll also see some big empty spots on the 10th century map. One of the biggest and most noticeable gaps is in the northeast. The large areas of Masuria were not part of Mieszko's country. The large areas of the Suwałki region were not part of Mieszko's country either. The northern border of Mieszko's state probably ran along the Narew River and the Biebrzia River, leaving this whole northeastern corner outside of his control. Another important area that was different is in the northwest, West Pomerania. Even though Mieszko got access to the sea through East Pomerania, his control over the lands around the mouth of the Oder River, near what is now Szczecin and Świnoujście, was much weaker. However, the Dagome iudex document isn't clear about this area, suggesting it might have been more of an area where he had influence rather than a fully part of his country. Just as there were lands Mieszko didn't control, there were also territories within his sphere of influence that lie beyond the borders of modern Poland. One of the most prominent examples of this eastern reach is the region known as the Czerwone towns. Even though they're not clearly mentioned in the Dagome iudex, their location is hinted at by the document's description of the eastern border reaching Rus. This region was a disputed borderland between the rising Polish state and the powerful Kievan Rus. According to early chronicles, Mieszko's son and successor, Bolesław the Brave, later fought to secure these lands. What's more, the likely connection of Alemure with Olomouc suggests a significant southern expansion of Mieszko's power into Moravia, a land that is now the eastern part of the Czech Republic. This push south of the Sudety Mountains shows Mieszko's role as an important player in the region's politics. To sum up, this look at the geography shows a state that was shaped differently than Poland in 2026. This comparison teaches us an important lesson. Mieszko's Poland wasn't a smaller version of today's country, but a different political entity, forever preserved in the mysterious lines of the Dagome iudex.